Hello and welcome to Seymour Sports Corner. I am your host, David Seymour. As you all know, I'm an aspiring sports broadcaster who's currently enrolled in school, getting my degree in sports broadcasting. I'm just doing this little podcast to try to get my name and brand out there and get myself familiarized with the microphone and being on camera. So I appreciate you guys joining me. And we've got a jam-packed show today. I did the episode on Monday with my friend Papa Do, and really I think that was the only episode that I was planning on doing, was just to have that Commanders episode and have some fun with that, and it was a blast. But man, so much has happened in the NFL and really in the sports world altogether, that I really felt like I needed to do another show today and just kind of recap some of the things and get my thoughts out on some of the things that took place. Obviously, we had the NFL trade deadline yesterday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Some notable trades were the Bills got Rasul Douglas from the Green Bay Packers. I think this was big for the Bills. Not that Rasul Douglas is a shutdown corner, but he is a good corner. And with the injury to Tre'Davious White, their secondary took a big hit. I was actually honestly surprised that the Bills weren't bigger buyers during the trade deadline, trying to get any kind of defensive help with the amount of injuries that they've sustained on that side of the ball. So I thought that was a big move for the Bills to figure that out. Chase Young and Montez Sweat were both dealt from Washington. I really thought that Washington was going to keep one or the other. With $90 million in cap space coming up this offseason, they definitely had room to keep at least one of them. So I thought one would stay and one would go. It was interesting to see that both of them went. Right before I got on the air here, I was listening to Ron Rivera's press conference after practice today, and he said he couldn't mention much about the Chase Young trade because the 49ers were in a bye week and something weird about that. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But what I found interesting was I've heard a lot of fans talk about how Chase Young is this reckless player that does his own thing. I've been on notice saying that sometimes I feel like our defensive line played better when he wasn't in the game. And one of the reporters asked Ron Rivera about this, asked him about if this was true that Chase Young just did his own thing and couldn't follow a playbook. And Ron Rivera failed to comment that, said he didn't understand how that got said or who would have said that. And if you can't put your name on it, don't say it. But my experience in all of my years of watching sports, and it's not just football, but it's all sports. Generally speaking, if these rumors get out that this is the way a certain player is, it's generally how it really is. I know these guys try to protect themselves and try to protect what gets out, but everything kind of comes to light. So it'll be interesting to see, the 49ers just traded for Randy Gregory a couple of weeks ago from the Broncos, and now they've added Chase Young. So it'll be interesting to see how that whole dynamic plays. Chase Young and Nick Bosa played together in Ohio State when they were in college, so they'll be kind of reunited. I was disappointed in the compensation that we got for Chase Young, a third-round compensatory pick that the 49ers got in exchange for some minority candidates getting hired from their organization. And that's the pick we would have gotten if he got let go in free agency. So I don't understand just getting what you would have gotten anyways. Leads me to believe that there is something to this whole idea that he doesn't follow the playbook, that he's just a maverick and goes out and does his own thing. And they just kind of needed to be rid of that. Montez Sweat, they're going to get a high second round pick from the Bears. I'm with everybody else that's been analyzing this trade. It doesn't make a lot of sense on the Bears' end to go out and get a guy on an expiring deal that you're going to have to either re-sign or franchise tag, and to give up as much compensation as you did, because if Washington wasn't going to re-sign him anyway, which is evident by the fact that they traded him away, then you could have just got him in free agency. I do find that trading both of these players away is a clear sign from Josh Harris that this regime's days are numbered. When you start gutting the core of what somebody else has built, you're essentially letting that person know you've failed, and we're going to have to move on. So I don't know if EB lasts or not through all this, because he just came on this year, whereas Ron Rivera and Jason Wright and all of these other guys have had 4 years to try to do something with all of this money and draft capital and everything else that they've put into this defense that is very underwhelming. And so when you start gutting the core of what somebody's built, and that defensive line was the core of what Ron Rivera was building there on that defense. So when you start gutting that and take away two of the biggest players that they have on that side of the ball, you have essentially told that regime, you're a failure and your days are numbered. So be interested to see what happens. I'd love to get a guy like Louis Riddick or somebody like that in there. We need a real general manager, a real guy with a real eye for talent that really knows how to build a team. I spoke Monday with my friend Papa, and I would really like to see Washington do what a lot of these teams done, is hire the GM and the coach at the same exact time with the same contract. We've seen this work several different times. It worked in San Francisco with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. You know, they kind of interviewed at the same time. You know, it was kind of a marriage right from the start. You know, it wasn't hire the GM and then the GM gets to go and find the coach. And it was, we're going to hire you both at the same time, almost simultaneous interviews. Let's see if you guys are on the same page, have the same idea in mind on how to build this team and in what direction we need to go. It's worked in Detroit with Dan Campbell and the general manager there. So this is a proven way to make things transition so much smoother. And so I'd really like to see him do something like that. I'd like to see him get a young offensive-minded coach. You know, as much as I'd hate to see Ron Rivera get fired in the middle of the year, I always find that that's a disrespectful thing to do to a coach unless he's absolutely abysmal. We'll get to one of those here in a minute. But at this point, I'd almost like to see what Eric Bieniemy has as the leader. You know, there's reports out that he's the head coach and everything but name. I don't know. Again, usually if reports like that get out, they're pretty accurate. Everybody will deny it in front of the camera, but eventually all of that stuff leaks out that that's exactly how it was. So if that's the case, then, you know, it makes sense as to why Ron Rivera's looked disinterested on the sidelines. And to be honest, if you're going to be disinterested in collecting a check and I fire you and you're still going to collect a check, then let's be done with it. Give Eric Bieniemy the title and see what he does. See if he can earn the job going forward. That being said, even if you do that, it kind of makes that whole general manager thing hard. So it'll be interesting to see how these moves affect the team going forward. What I do know is Washington has $90 million in cap space coming up and 5 picks in the top 100. So we need We need a real GM in there to do something with that, because this isn't the first time in the last 30 plus years that we've had this good of a situation going into an off season and squandered it away. So I'd really like to see us get some good leadership in there that can really navigate us through this and actually build something with what we've got going on. Josh Dobbs to the Vikings was a really interesting trade. Kirk Cousins just went down with the Achilles tear. I hate to see that. I always liked Kurt. I understood why he left Washington. I would have left Washington in his situation as well. So I don't blame the man for going on and trying to be successful. And I've always had an affinity for and a lot of respect for Kirk Cousins in the way that he carries himself and the way he conducts his business on and off the field. So it was really sad to see him go down with that injury. But the Vikings were able to go get a really smart quarterback who's been playing really good football all season long with subpar weapons. If we're being honest, Hollywood Brown's not a horrible wide receiver, but he's not a true number one guy. He's a number two or a good slot receiver, but he's not a number one wide receiver. And so without a true number one wide receiver and a lot of things that not a lot of talent there, right? Not a good running game, and really on a franchise that's, I wouldn't say tanking, but they're not trying to win as many games as they possibly can. I think they're trying to position themselves in the best position that they can get into to kind of rebuild this thing. And, they're going to start a rookie like fourth or fifth round quarterback until Kyler Murray's healthy enough to play. Who knows when that'll be, but I think that the Vikings kept themselves at least in contention by going out and getting Josh Dobbs. And then, of course, the trade deadline got kicked off with Leonard Williams to the Seahawks. I believe that happened on Monday or Sunday. I believe it was Monday. And I think that's a big deal. Pete Carroll's a defensive-minded coach, and they have not been able to stop the run for the last couple of years. It's been a while since Pete Carroll and that defense has been what it was when they won the Super Bowl. And so I think it's significant for him to go and grab Leonard Williams in an attempt to try to rebuild that defense. So the other big news from the trade deadline isn't a trade, actually. It's the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels, their GM, and now apparently their offensive coordinator. Devontae Adams was extremely upset on the sidelines during the Monday night loss, and as he should be. He was wide open on two long touchdown passes that they could have been the difference in the game. They lost by 12 points. Even if you miss the field goals, there's at least the tie to get you into overtime. It's come out, too, that the Raiders are going to bench Jimmy Garoppolo. He's done for the year. They're going to move forward and see what they have with Aiden O'Connell, which is probably not much. The kid's tough and gritty, but the Raiders are not a very good football team. I find it interesting, too, that they dug all the way down into their linebackers coach to find their interim head coach, right? Antonio Pierce. My understanding is he's a super young up-and-comer as far as coaching goes. We all know he played for the Giants in Washington during his playing days, won a Super Bowl with New York. But he was doing some really big things as the linebackers coach and recruiting coordinator and eventually defensive coordinator over at Arizona State under Herm Edwards, and was apparently in line to be the next head coach before all of the scandal and everything that happened at Arizona State came out. So I'm not knocking that that's who the Raiders chose as their interim head coach. What I think is, now obviously with them firing their offensive coordinator, but you didn't even use your defensive coordinator. Granted, their defense has played like crap for the majority of the year. Kind of helped keep them into some games, but haven't been, other than Max Crosby, there's nothing that's really stand out about Las Vegas's defense. So I find it interesting, not that Antonio Pierce is the one that got the job. I think it's absolutely phenomenal for Antonio Pierce. Excited to see what he does, especially after learning today that he was next in line to be Arizona State's head coach. Always love to see, especially ex players. I love to see those gritty guys that were smash mouth football players out on the field come in and become smash mouth head coaches, right? D'Amico Ryans, Mike Vrabel, now Antonio Pierce. So, I mean, these are all guys that I grew up watching. So, it's always fun to see those guys come out and be on the sidelines as coaches, and sharing their knowledge of the game, their firsthand knowledge of the game, and I feel like that they're better coaches. Dan Campbell's one, right? Former player that's you know all heart, right? Toughness, grit, and all of that, and he brings that to the sidelines, and I just think that's cool. I just find it interesting that you don't trust any of your coordinators enough, and obviously not the offensive coordinator because you just fired him. But like, how bad is that staff that's put together that the owner completely overlooks everybody else that's right below the coach and goes, we're going down to the position level to find the guy because I don't trust anybody that's been hand in hand or hand in the pocket of the head coach. So abysmal. I want to get as many degrees of separation away from Josh McDaniels as I possibly can. And look, Josh McDaniels isn't, I'm a fan of Josh McDaniels. He's just not a head coach, right? And that's okay. He's offensive genius, right? He's apparently the only one that knows how to get Mac Jones to play decent football, right? Because as soon as he left, Mac Jones went down the toilet and has not recovered yet. So you can't say anything about Josh McDaniels' offensive acumen. He's just not a head coach, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it sucks that it didn't work out for him. It's the business of football. Don't know that he was necessarily in the greatest situation. The Raiders haven't been a good football team in a long time, and they're one of those teams that just can't seem to figure out how to get it built, or they're not patient enough to let it build. Not that I think Josh McDaniels was going to build anything there. This is his second stint as a head coach, and minus a 6-0 start in Denver, starting from his 7th game in Denver until now as a head coach, it's been god awful. And so I don't know that he's done being a coach. I'm sure he'll land a coordinator's job somewhere and make somebody's offense very, very happy. But I think his days as a head coach are done. Interesting news is that James Harden got his wish and got traded to LA. LA sends off a bunch of picks and different players and stuff, and Philadelphia gets a headache off of their hands. I think Josh Harris got trade happy because the James Harden trade got done the day before the Chase Young and Montez Sweat trade got done. I think he just started hitting buttons on his computer. Trade you, trade you, trade you. So it'd be interesting. I'm not a big, huge hockey guy, but he's also part owner of the New Jersey Devils. So it'd be interesting to see if any of the New Jersey Devils got traded in the last couple of days. But no, it just, James Harden's one of those guys. I don't think it necessarily makes the Clippers any better. I don't think it makes them any worse. at this point, you got a bunch of middling aged, you know, injury prone guys that in their heyday, if you would have put them all together, you would have been guaranteed a championship. Um, Kawhi Leonard is trying to come back off the ACL tear. Uh, I don't know. They're one of the teams that rest their players the absolute most. Can't I can't. I'm drawing a blank on their other forward's name that came from Paul George. There we go. He had the leg break, and it was a really bad leg break a few years ago when he was with the Indiana Pacers. And you know, I've got a lot of broken bones. I'm 39 years old. I don't know how old he is, probably 32, 34, something like that. And as you get older, those older injuries, really start to come back to haunt you at the most inopportune times, right? And then you've got James Harden, who you never know if he's in shape or out of shape. You don't know where his head's at. And he's got a lot of talent. He just can't ever seem to put it together in the biggest, brightest moments. And that's really what the Clippers need, right? Is they need somebody to help them in the biggest, brightest moments. And James Harden tends to ghost in those moments. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I'm not expecting anything. I know their odds to win a championship jumped up by I think they went from like plus 4,500 to plus 2,500 or something like that. But I don't foresee them being in the finals or playing for a championship. So we'll go ahead and get to our weekly picks. I got a few more college games this week. Oh, that's what we were going to talk about. Is the new college football poll came out, the first one of the season. Ohio State, as much as I hate to say it, was rightfully number one. Watching Ohio State play, I don't think they're the best team in the country. But one of the biggest things that the college football poll always focuses on is strength of schedule. And they've beaten both Notre Dame and Penn State. So it's a matter of big wins and wins against superior opponents or top flight opponents. Ohio State, hands down, has that. Followed by Georgia, who hasn't lost a game since that SEC championship 2 years ago. So they've been over almost working on 2 calendar years without a loss. So obviously they sneak in at number 2. Michigan's number 3. All of this stuff with the sign stealing is getting completely wild and crazy. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Reports that I've heard from the different shows that I listen to and guys that come onto those shows that are experts in all of this to talk about it say that nothing will happen this year. So if they're going to go out and win a championship, now's the time to do it. They might have to vacate it, but at least they can say they won it. And then Florida State's number 4. Followed by, Washington, Oregon, and Texas round out the top 7. Alabama rounds out the top 8. It'll be interesting to see Washington and Oregon probably play each other again for the Pac-12 championship. Texas is going to play Oklahoma or somebody for the Big 12 championship if they win out. So those 2 teams are still alive. I mean, technically Alabama's still alive if they manage to make it to the SEC championship game and beat Georgia. They'll definitely be in. You've got Michigan still has to play Penn State and Ohio State. Ohio State still has to play Michigan. So we'll see how that turns out. Last year, Michigan beat Ohio State, and they still ended up both in the playoff. It'll be interesting to see because you've only got 4 spots. You've got 5 power conference schools. You got what? You got 5 undefeated teams. And out of those 5 undefeated teams, 2 of them come from the same conference and have to play each other. So if Washington and Florida State both win out, Michigan or Ohio State loses, it'll be interesting to see how, with all the strength of schedule and everything that plays out, if a one-loss team is able to jump over an undefeated Pac-12 championship winner, or over a Florida State team whose biggest win to date is against LSU, who's a 2-loss team, and then against Clemson, who's, I think, a 3-loss team at this point in time in the year. So it'll be interesting to see if any of these 1-loss teams can jump over a undefeated Power 5 winner, or do these teams all just kind of mush around and you end up with, 3 or 4 1-loss teams fighting for 2 playoff spots. I think Georgia kind of proved that they woke up this past weekend against Florida. They put a beating on them. My girlfriend's a big Florida fan, and we were gone before halftime, going out and getting Halloween stuff to go to a Halloween party later on in the night. So she didn't even care to finish watching the game, and it got ugly quick. I really thought Florida would be able to keep it a little bit closer, especially with Brock Bowers being out. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. Obviously, this is the first one to go. We've still got, 4 or 5 weeks of college football left, plus conference championship. So 6-7 weeks, something like that. So this is the best time of college football. It'll be really, I can't wait for next year, because next year we'll have the 12-team playoff, and we're not going to be arguing over whether a 1-loss team can get in or not. It's going to be fun to do next year when we have the 12-team bracket. So, but for now, we're still stuck with 4 teams, and I'll be real interested to see how it all plays out. So let's get into our picks. Got Kansas City is at Kansas City. Kansas State is at Texas. Texas is a 4-point favorite. Be interested to see who Texas starts at quarterback. I'm hoping Cam Ewers is back. I was watching a little bit of the game last week with Mikhail in it, and there were some things that I really liked and some things that I definitely didn't like. He didn't look comfortable in the pocket at all. He didn't look comfortable throwing the ball. A lot of the times that he was throwing it, he was backing up while throwing. And that's never a good thing from a quarterback. And I'm not sure that Arch Manning's really ready to start yet. So I really hope that Quinn Ewers is able to come back. But I am going to take Texas. Texas knows they have no options but to win. They have to win out, and they have to win big. Style points count with the college football playoff. So you're facing a ranked team here, the defending Big 12 champion. So you need to go in and make a showing. So it's Texas -4. I'm going to take Texas because this is a must-win and must-win big. You got Mizzou is at Georgia. Georgia's a 15-point favorite. I'm taking Georgia in the 15. Again, style points matter at this point. It's time. Georgia showed last week that they were awake, live, and ready to rumble, and I think they handle Missouri this coming week. Notre Dame -3 at Clemson. Dabo Swinney lost it on a fan on a radio show earlier this week, talking about how they're lucky to have him. and I don't know how much longer they're going to have him if he can't adapt his program to get with the times. I'm going to take Notre Dame there. Now, Washington -3 at USC. I really think that Washington wins this going away by a touchdown or more. USC's lost 3 games in a row. They're playing really bad football right now, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And Michael Penix has had a couple of bad games since the Oregon game, but I think he gets right against USC's defense. And Washington plays real defense, and they play real physical. So I think they handle USC pretty well. You got LSU is going to Alabama. Alabama's a 3-point favorite. And this is a tough game to pick, right? LSU's defense has been spotty in games. Against Ole Miss, they played absolutely zero defense. And they followed it up by playing zero defense, but playing really good offensive football. I like their quarterback. I think LSU comes in and gets the upset in Tuscaloosa. So I'm going to take LSU +3 there. On to the NFL. We've got Tennessee is at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's 3-point favorite. Will Levis went smooth off. Showed the whole world why he should have been drafted higher than the second round. That being said, he seems to have found the right situation. That offense seemed to completely open up. Pittsburgh's dealing with a lot of injuries over there. And so I like Tennessee to upset this. I'm going to take Tennessee +3 and on the money line. You got Miami is at Kansas City. Kansas City's a 1.5-point favorite. This game's actually in Germany, Munich, Germany. Look, when you're traveling into different time zones, right, your ability to get adjusted to that time zone matters, right? We saw it a few weeks ago, Jacksonville versus Buffalo. Jacksonville was playing their second game in a row in London, and they stayed for an entire week. Buffalo waited until Friday night to leave out to go to England, and they played flat the whole game. Looked like they were sleepwalking through the majority of the game. Miami has already been out in Germany for 2 or 3 days now. Well, I guess it could only be 2 days because they just played Sunday. But so they've already been out there. They're already starting to get accustomed to the time zone. They've probably changed up their sleep schedules and all of that. Last night, Kansas City was having a Halloween party at their facility with Taylor Swift and all the people. And look, I don't care what Travis Kelce does in his personal life as far as who he dates or any of that. What I'm looking at is how much more focused on this game Miami is than Kansas City is. I like Miami to upset Kansas City in this game. Watching the Denver Kansas City game last week, Kansas City looks flat on offense. They do not have anybody else that Patrick Mahomes trusts other than Travis Kelce. And if you watch what the Broncos did, is they left all kinds of people wide open and focused all of their attention on Travis. And Patrick Mahomes was still trying to force the ball into Travis. So it'll be interesting to see. They've got 2 dogs at corner for Miami. Jalen Ramsey's back, and of course you got Xavier Howard, Agent Zero or Agent X or whatever they call him over there. So again, here's a team I was surprised wasn't active at the trade deadline trying to find wide receiver help, because there's not anybody on this team that Pat Mahomes trusts, and he shouldn't trust any of them, right? They are continuously dropping balls. They've proven that they're not trustworthy. So I'll take Miami. Washington's at New England. New England's a 3-point favorite. I'm going to take Washington to upset them. After losing some key players, I think Washington comes out with a new fire. Sam Howell had probably the best game of his career last week. He was only sacked one time. Was able to stand in the pocket, deliver some dimes, threw for almost 400 yards. Um, he did have the one pick and the one sack fumble. Um, so those are young rookie quarterback mistakes, and he's essentially still a rookie, even though he's in his second year. It's his first full year starting, so he made some mistakes. But I just think at the end of the day that New England's not a very good football team, and we're going to be able to squeak away a win there. Chicago's at New Orleans. New Orleans is -8. I'm going to take Chicago to cover. I know Justin Fields still isn't going to play, and the Saints have a really good defense. I just think that they're very stale on offense. Be interesting to see how Montez Sweat does in his first game as a Bear. See if he can get after Derek Carr at all. But I like Chicago plus the 8, New Orleans to win the game. Tampa Bay's at Houston. Houston's a 2.5-point favorite. They're coming off of a loss. Not that they played bad, but they didn't play great. Tampa Bay's got a real defense. I'm going to take Tampa Bay there. Arizona's at Cleveland. Cleveland's -8, and I'm going to take Cleveland and those 8 points. I honestly don't even care who's starting at quarterback for Cleveland this week. Arizona's on a fire sale. They're starting a no-name quarterback until Kyler Murray's healthy enough to play again. So got the Rams at Green Bay. Green Bay's a 3.5-point favorite. Give me the Rams. Green Bay's just not played very good football. A lot of drops from the wide receivers. Just haven't been able to really get anything going. So I'll take the Rams plus the 3.5. Seattle's at Baltimore. Baltimore's a 6-point favorite. I'm going to take Seattle plus the 6. I know they're traveling to the East Coast, and they don't usually do very well on the East Coast, but they did come to the East Coast and upset the Detroit Lions. And I like having that they put Leonard Williams in the middle right there to help stop some of that run game that Baltimore has. I think Baltimore wins the game, but I think Seattle keeps it closer than a touchdown. Minnesota's at Atlanta. Atlanta's a 6-point favorite. I'm going to take Atlanta here. My boy Taylor Heineke is going to be starting for Atlanta this week. I think that'll help give them a lift. And the other part of that is that Josh Dobbs isn't going to be ready to start for Minnesota this weekend, so they're starting a rookie quarterback. So I'll take Atlanta minus the 6 there. Got Indianapolis is 2.5-point favorite going to Carolina. I'll take Indianapolis there. Dallas is at Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a 3-point favorite. I'll take Philadelphia. Dak always lays an egg in the big games, and this is probably their biggest game yet this season, minus the Niners game. So I expect he'll lay the normal egg. The Giants are at the Raiders. The Raiders are a 1.5-point favorite. And I'll take the Raiders. I know they're starting Aiden O'Connell. The Giants traded away probably arguably their best defensive player. I'm not sure who's starting at quarterback for the Giants. Could be the DeVito kid. It might be Tyrod Taylor coming out of the hospital. But historically speaking, teams that fire their head coach in the middle of the season generally go on some sort of rally behind the new guy kind of deal and go on some kind of winning streak. So I'll take the Raiders minus the 1.5. And then the Sunday night game is Buffalo at Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a 2-point favorite. And I'll take Cincinnati there at their own house. Joe Burrow's calf seems to be doing a heck of a lot better. And this is who Cincinnati is, right? Their preseason is in September. They really start kicking things off in October. And by November, it looks like, pedal to the metal. So I'll take Cincinnati there. Chargers -3 at the Jets, and I'm going to take the Jets. This is a game that the Chargers should win, so they will lose. Brandon Staley is probably the next coach fired if there's another coach fired in the middle of the season. If not, he'll be with the group of coaches that get let go on what was formerly called Black Monday. Um, so, yeah, that's my weekly picks, man. If you guys could please like and subscribe, share, comment, please comment. I have not gotten any comments in a minute. Let me know what you think. Let's debate some things. If you think you might want to come on the show, comment and let me know that what kind of things that you got to talk about. Maybe we can work something out. Um, Again, I appreciate you guys all listening to me rant and give my opinions, and I appreciate all y'all's support. Thank you and have a good night.